Hi guys, Phil Mann here, and I'm going to be talking to you about some very exciting things. Now, some of you guys may hear the word Ashdown, and as soon as you hear Ashdown, you just think big amps, big valves, big stage, big sound. But there's a little part of that title that you might be missing, and that is the engineering bit. Ashdown Engineering. Essentially, the company has always been an engineering firm. They always kind of have a question, have a product, and then build something to fill that void and kind of, tick all the boxes that the players need in the present world. Well, if you look back in Ashdown's wonderful footprint, something happened just recently, and it was the release of the LB 2.0N. Now, you may have seen that publicity on Bass the World. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a great collaboration where the modern world of music was kind of taken into consideration. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, we sit at computers a lot now, don't we? We kind of use a lot of simulation software. We need all these sort of things with DAWs and being able to interact with our computers, perform, and also have things like backing tracks and support using different software and applications. Well, if you have a traditional valve amp, they don't do that. Most of them can't even be played without a cab underneath them because they have big transformers. They have to be under load. So if you're going to do some research and you check out that LB 2.0, Bass the World's a great place to start. They did a fabulous review. They talk about a couple of key things. The first thing was that amplifier didn't need to be under load anymore. It has all sorts of gubbins inside of it, okay, which means basically you can plug on a full valve amp. It doesn't overheat, it doesn't cook. The other thing that was really great about it is there was a load of cab simulations that were inside it. It was all part of that 2 Notes collaboration that Ashdown Engineering had. There was also a software package, which meant you now had a full active, full gubbins tube amplifier that you can plug into a computer and then arrange all the cabs to your specific specifications. That was a blueprint. That was kind of the beginning of a renaissance, a catalyst, if you want, for something which is incredibly exciting. And I'm really, really proud to be the guy to stand here to say that at NAMM 2024, the EVO 3, third generation of this wonderful line, is just about to appear on your shelves from Ashdown. So let's talk about what's happened. Let's talk about the real world application, because I don't want to be that guy that stands here and just gives you specifications. Hi guys, the bass is at 100 hertz and bore the life out of you. Let's talk about bass playing. Let's talk about real stages, real environments, and how this thing is going to better your world. Well, let's talk about the first thing, cosmetics. The EVOs have had a massive overhaul. The RM EVO 3, as you can see, this is the ROOTMASTER 500, looks fantastic. This isn't just a cosmetic switch. Let's make it look more modern. Let's make it more sort of contemporary. And there's also functionality behind this. There's so many stages that I've been on personally where quite ostentatious amplifiers have been frowned upon these days. Okay, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but it's true. Performance is so much more about production now. You go on stage, there's silent stages, there's big graphics and media displays, big lighting shows, and engineers, sound in front of the house don't want to see ostentatious amplifiers that are going to take up the screen. Manufacturers do though. So because of that, obviously the famous VU Ashdown is still there. We love it, obviously. How can you have an Ashdown amp and not have that? But it has functionality this time. So what's changed? Well, let's go through the front panel, talk about some of the features, talk about some of the ways that these new technologies that we spoke about with the bass up front stuff, remember the little bastard, so LB 2.0, okay? Let's talk about those components and how they've been integrated into this, the latest generation of the EVOs, because it's brilliant. There's some great engineering works that have been going on here. So first of all, straight from left to right, let's talk about that. Then we'll talk about the back panel and how it can all be incorporated into one usable product. Mute switch. Well, the mute switch straight away kills, and you see straight that little refinement. Great little thing that makes all the difference. When you're on a stage, your amplifier can be 15 feet behind you sometimes. Sometimes it can be 2 feet behind you. It's nine times out of 10 going to be dark. You can't see a single thing. LED, live, or not live, you can see it from the colour, purple, orange. Obviously the Ashdown glow is still going to be behind you. There's the marketing side of things that we all love. We don't want to go on stage without that, do we? So from the front, we've got the mute switch, but there's been a change here. This is a slight refinement. The ROOTMASTER's got a massive power amps, Class D. We've got a 500 and we've also got the 800 watt variants. I've got to tell you, the 500 is almost loud enough for any scenario already. The 800 is going to give you even more headroom. More headroom, more tone, less distortion, more articulate sort of elements in your playing, okay? But from here, one noticeable thing is that the two inputs have gone. We used to have an active and passive input. So what that means is you've now got a single input and a gain control. Now, in some environments, you guys might be used to seeing an active passive switch, okay? On some of the other components and the other models of this range, we can talk about that presence and how that plays a part. But in the EVO, it's got a very specific function. The main reason being is that this gain control is now much more linear. It's hugely more responsive than just a straight get the gain to drive the input of your amplifier and then use a pad to make sure it doesn't clip. Digital preamps clip, you get that horrible overdrive. There's no saturation. And that's that keyword. That's the thing that's associated to old tube amps. The more you drive the input, the more you get kind of an overtone. You get a three-dimensional aspect to your tone. You don't get that with sort of digital preamps. They're very clean, very precise, very articulate, a little bit anal in their delivery. This isn't, okay? What's going to happen? Well, the input's singular. So if I find my gain, what I can do is I can push this gain, it becomes linear. You still have a clean signal. It's not an overdrive function. That's located elsewhere on the amp. But what it allows me to do is get more bottom end, more richness, and really drive that input. So if you think about those old preamps, those kind of, I don't want to say certain names, but Bassman comes to mind, clean tube amps that you can drive and get that lovely warmth from, you're going to get that from this. And that's because of the absence of the two inputs, one master input with a linear gain. Absolutely brilliant device. Tiny refinement makes a world of difference to usability from me as a bassist. If I dig in, it will respond now. It won't clip before it used to. And that's something you should be aware of other amplifiers, because maybe the EVO's got a little edge. Now, if we go away from that, we've obviously got our input gain and we've got a mute for that. We spoke about that. What I'm going to talk about now is the preamp. Now, the preamp from literally feedback from players. We're not talking about some gubbin sitting inside, you know, with a science room going, these are the frequencies we must use for optimal use. This is feedback from players on stage. And if you go and look at the portfolio guys that use Ashdown, you can see firsthand the guys that are giving the feedback and why. So let's talk about this. If you talk to me about traditional Ashdown, I would say big valve, big scoop, big traditional stadium rock. This is a whole different beast, super clean. This preamp is one of the cleanest preamps that I've encountered from the Ashdown series. Really is, it's a wonderful product. One of the things that I really love about it is now a 5-band EQ, which gives me a little bit more play in trying to get the sound out of it that I want. But the thing that I've really noticed about this, and this is the refinements that I love from this, the third generation of the EVO, is the frequencies that these reside upon. So let's talk about that in conjunction with front of house, because guys, if you like it or not, you're never on your own. You've got to work with an engineer. You've got to work with monitor engineers and studio stuff. So let's go from that. The bass frequency. Bass frequency is centered at 100 Hertz. Now, is that a big thing? What does that mean to you if you don't know anything about Hertz? Well, PA systems normally have a big sub and they have a big top box. And the frequencies that get sent to the top or the low box is all dependent on what's referred to as a crossover. And that's normally located around 100 or 90 Hertz. 100 Hertz, which means if you crank the bass on this through your DI, everything's going to come out the sub out front on the master PA. That is engineering very well thought of. At the absolute opposite end of that is the treble. Now, you think about your treble, straight away, where are tweeters focused? Well, that frequency that makes every that gives you that in your sound is about 6.5, okay? That treble is on 7. So that basically means if I'm playing live without using any of the mids at all, and I go, right, I want to put a bit of bottom end on my sound, okay, that's it. That's all I want. I just want a bit more guts. I'm now going to tell it the bass. I'm safe in the knowledge that the bass that's coming out the front is on exactly the frequencies being delivered to the correct speaker system that I want. And the DI stages of this are all post EQ. So I've got a little bit of dictatorial stance on this. My bass has now been boosted, still clean as a whistle, because that linear gain gives me tons of headroom. But I know now that bottom end is coming through the sub out the front. The same thing happens with the treble. If I crank the treble and go, right, I want a little bit of top end to go slap bass, that frequency is now being projected into the top boxes, more specifically the tweeters of front of house. See, what you can see here is this isn't just a bass amp which is going to be a back line. This is a bass amp that's been designed with a collaboration of front of house and performance and production with in mind. The three sections, low mid, centered mid, and a high mid, centered at 140 hertz, 660 hertz, and 1.6 kilohertz, gives you a lot more defined. Obviously, mid range, anyone that's out there will go, okay, it gives you more presence, yeah, but that top end gives you a little bit more articulate sort of preciseness in your sound, and then the low mid's going to give you a little bit more growl. EQ, clean as a whistle, 12 o'clock's pretty much all flat, so you're cutting or boosting accordingly to your taste, but in the full knowledge that it's going to complement what's coming out front of the modern design of a PA system. Now, from there, we're going to go on to a different stage. Talk about compression, and then we can talk about the drive system. Compression, punching in and out. Really usable compression. With a lot of compressors, you find that they can suffocate your sound. This doesn't. It really brings in very nice, a very sort of soft clip. It's got a higher threshold. It's very organic. It's very friendly. Love it. Very, very usable. One of the great things that I liked about the compressor is when it was punched in, obviously it can be accessed from the front panel or the foot switch, which is plugged in the back of the amp, is that even with the compression in place, it's not overwhelming. I remember a great engineer and one of the finest British session bass players ever, Mo Foster. Mo said to me, the best compression you'll ever hear is compression that you don't know is there. You don't know it's there. It's doing its job. Once again, it's all organic. It's very responsive. There's a great bottom end in there. I love this. One of the things, again, with cheap drives is they sound a bit gnarly. They sound a bit saturated, a bit budget. This doesn't. As soon as you punch in the drive, a lot of headroom, so it's very responsive. If you ever found yourself on a control, you play a polarity pot, you move it a tiny bit and it's too much. This hasn't. There's a lot of play in this. You can see here, look, even if I just play an open E string for you, and as I punch in the drive, wind up the thing, you can see it's coming in very gradual. I'm now at the 12 o'clock position, just about, and without taking it to extreme, that's probably as much drive as I would use live, okay? But once again, drop it in, drop it out. Great thing about this, no real loss of bottom end. Once again, leaning back into Ashdown's heritage, go and check out the Mega Drive from Lomenzo and the Hyperdrive, if we go back in the day. One of the great things about those pedals was that when you punch in distortion, you didn't drop the bottom end. And that's one of the things that you get with a lot of budget pedals. As soon as you pop them in, where's the bottom end gone? Once again, I don't know how they've done it with the EVO 3. Bottom end stays in there, the compression's soft, it's musical, there's loads of headroom on the gain, which makes that really responsive. It doesn't clip and break up. And now the drive is also really, really usable. From there we get onto the sub. Now this is kind of, don't believe what you read. If you've said to me about the old ABMs, the bass magnifiers, okay? Yeah, it's a sub-octave. It's an octaver, isn't it? It's not an octaver. It's more like a thickener. With a lot of amplifiers, you find that you have things like high passes and stuff built into them. So as you crank them up, the lower frequencies get taken out to protect the speakers, okay? That's why if you go on stage with a big 8x10, it's the cab that kind of puts all the bottom end back into your stage sound, okay? Full range flat response is good because all those frequencies stay there, but you can then damage the cones. The magnifier is more like a thickener. Yes, it does work an octave lower, but what happens is all that bottom end and sub that you lose as you crank up the volume can be put back in. Personally, how I'd have used this sort of in conjunction with the preamp is that at lower volumes, I don't really use the sub a great deal. It can get a bit muddy, okay? But that's not what it's designed for. This is an Ashdown. This isn't going to be 100% bedroom playing. This is stage stuff, okay? So as the volume goes up, I can bring the sub in and the sub's going to thicken out and enrich that bottom end so that even with volume, I've got the depth to the sound that I want. Absolutely brilliant products. Loads of headroom like we spoke about already because of this massive Class D 500 watt and also the 800 watt variant, which is available. So good. But the preamp, how it's set out is exactly the same. We're talking just about different size power amps, which are Class D. Now, let's get on to the magic, because this is the bit that made me really excited. I came down to an open day, I came down to check these things out for the first time with their release, ahead of their release at NAMM 2024. And it was this. First of all, the line mix, that's something that we can definitely incorporate into our daily practice. And the other thing was the analog cab sim. Now, earlier on in this presentation, we spoke about the AB 2.0N, which was that wonderful collaboration. It was, for me, one of the seminal collaborations in the last 10 years between Ashdown Engineering and Two Notes, okay? But there's components of this that have now been adopted and brought into the ROOTMASTER range. Now, if we're playing live and you want to change your cab, you're going to change your cab. You can either use the 410s, the 112s. Ashdown have got the full range that you can put underneath this hat. That's cool. You don't need to have any emulation because the cabs will do it. But what happens if you're in a different environment? Well, this is Class D. So Class D means it doesn't need to be used under load. It means I can unplug the speaker like so, and it's not going to overheat. It's Class D. Thankfully, there's a kill switch on the back, so I can turn off the speakers anyway, which is going to be really great. But the other thing to take into account here is how you would use it at home. Now, say I was going to be using silent practice. Let's plug that back in, otherwise I'll get in trouble. If we're using silent practice, we don't want to wake up the neighbours. We want to do some work, and we want to use some headphone stuff, and we want to integrate it with computers and software. There's loads of really cool things that this head presents to you. The first thing is the cab sim. We go from left to right, and let's talk about what these are, how they work, how you can use them. Well, they're 100% present on the XLR out. So if you're putting a home feed into a mixer, listening on your headphones, or some sort of DAW and stuff that has an XLR compartment, you can use that, such as a headphone amp, or any other sort of third-party piece of hardware that you're using. First of all, you can plug that in. The SIM's going to come on that. Okay, the second thing is also active on your headphones. There's a headphone out on the back, plug your bin straight in there. Maybe you've got a sister company set of headphones from Meters, they can go straight in the back as well. So they're really great, and you're going to hear what happens here. So what have we got? Well, the first thing is the balance or cab sim. That's activating the sim. Take it out, it's 100% clean. It's as your bass is. As we said earlier on, this is one of the cleanest preamps I've heard from Ashdown. Absolutely brilliant. So let's activate the cab, and then let's see what it's going to do. Well, with the cab sim engaged, like we said before, the headphone and the XLR now is going to have different properties. The first one is that you can change the sound. Do you want your cab to sound ported, or do you want to sound it sealed? Two very different variations in sealed cabs and ports about air movement, how that works, and how it integrates with the speaker. That can be emulated here. Do you want to play through a 10 or a 15? Okay, well, this is, again, the sorts of things that we saw with that Two Notes collaboration, where you could change the speakers done with software. This has now been done actually actively in the head. That's amazing. So 10s, nice, super tight low end, a good strong mids, bit more fuzzy warmth from the 15. It's all there in your head. You can just pop it in and out as you want to. From then, we've also got a tweeter. So if you want to use your high-end functionality, that's got an emulation for that as well. So now we can go super tight 10s with a tweeter and ported. That's going to give me a very modern XLR or headphone feed, which would then could be counterparts with a 15, take the tweeter out. It's a very traditional sound, all on board. What's really great as well is there's a line in. So on the back of the head where you've got your foot switch, you've then got the line mix. Now the line mix is exactly what you do. If you're at home and you're working with a drum machine, these days it could be everything from an iPhone to other phones are available, but it can be from any sort of phone, any sort of computer software, using drum machines, using backing tracks, using any sort of playback systems or software. You can plug that directly into the head as well. So this becomes a one-stop shop. Cab simulation practice tool on your desktop at home. It's not going to overload because it's Class D. Then unplug it, take it out, rock your hearts out on stage at night. For me, one of the best products EVO, the EVO 3 is that Ashdown's released in the last 10 years. Very, very excited about this. If you get a chance, go and check it out. It's worth your time. Take care, guys.